Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 1:31. Up is approval of the August 7th minutes. Councilmember Coombs, are you okay with those minutes?
Yes.
Great. And I am as well, so those are approved. Next up, Bill Levine, July 2025 sales tax chart.
Good afternoon, committee. Again, my name is Bill Levine. I'm an analyst in the budget office, here to talk about July sales tax. So you can see from the far right bar on that graph that we had a really good month in July. Collections were 28.4 million, and that amount was 3.4 million or 13.8% more than what we collected in July 2024. So to explain that, I wanted to tell you a short story. And the short story, I've kind of mentioned this before, but every month I go through all of the sales tax returns for the month, and then I arrange them from largest to smallest. And I can tell you that when I do that, every month, one of two companies is the largest, and it's either Amazon, the largest online retailer, or it's Xcel Energy, who sells energy to virtually every household in the city of Aurora. To my surprise, in the month of July, the largest taxpayer was not one of those two companies. The largest taxpayer was someone who I don't normally see, and in fact, who has not been making sales tax payments recently to the city of Aurora at all in any amount. So when that happened, I got on the phone, as I often do, and I called Jeff Edwards in the taxation division, and I said, Jeff, what do you know about this? Why are we suddenly seeing this company remitting a large amount of sales tax? And he said, I don't know for sure, but this might be a catch-up payment. And I have to say, I had a strange initial reaction to that, and it touched upon sort of a sense of patriotism in me, and I got really angry, like immediately very angry at the idea of a catch-up payment, not realizing, I think in my head I was thinking that this was some sort of unpatriotic infringement upon my right to dip my French fries in something, and that is not what Jeff Edwards meant. A catch-up payment, as used by Jeff, was more the idea that this company probably was behind on its taxes and was making a catch-up or paying for taxes that they owed, with really the story being that this was a one-time payment to catch up to what this company owed the city. And in fact, there was a second similar payment made to a smaller extent by another company. And in total, those two companies accounted for about 60% of the growth in sales tax. So again, very much one-time payments, not necessarily an indicator that consumers are going out and buying lots of stuff, but sort of these one-time occurrences were driving a lot of the results. Consistent with that same idea, I've also talked to you sometimes about sector analysis. And so I track 15 different sectors of business for their sales tax collections. In the month of July, when we were having the great result that you see in front of you, that 13.8% growth, 9 of 15 sectors saw declines in their sales tax. So again, very much consistent with the idea that a very few companies were driving growth in the city, and that this is not either sort of an ongoing trend necessarily or broad-based across all of the sectors. So that's really the story behind why we had such a good month. So sort of good news, but sort of qualified good news. And I'm just going to go ahead and answer a question that I think you've asked almost every month recently, which is, okay, we had a good month. Does that change anything? And I think my answer to that would be sort of a yes and no answer. It does make me a lot more confident that we will meet our sales tax number for 2025, quite possibly even exceed it. What I haven't told you, because this is a sales tax discussion, but is relevant, we also had a really good month for audit recoveries. What I also should probably also say is we had a continuing trend of use tax being really poor in the month of July as well. So a lot of the same patterns that we've seen are continuing. So again, does it change anything? I think for 2025, I'm a lot more confident that we will meet or exceed both the sales tax number and probably our whole general fund number. But I don't think it really changes anything to me for 2026. So as we move towards workshop and we now have an actual proposed budget, I don't think this changes anything. So the places that we're doing well, which is July sales tax and audit recoveries, are very much one-time revenues. So that doesn't, to me, necessarily indicate that anything's going to change for 2026 and beyond. So with that, that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate the really thorough explanation. My only question, so you had said use tax remains low. Is that auto purchases? Like what components make up use tax?
So there are 2 or 3, depending how we want to count it. But yes, auto use tax is one of the big ones. And then we sometimes talk about capital related use tax. And that's where there are really 2 components: a building materials use tax and another use tax. Collectively, we call those capital use tax. Both of those, if we count them as 2, both of those continue to be down. We're down in July as well. So those are continue to trail behind what was in our original budget.
Got it. Okay. And then as far as the companies you were referencing, can you disclose who those are or no?
I don't believe I am supposed to do that.
Okay. Nope, that's fine. Councilmember Coombs, any questions?
Yeah, so I know that the remittance of the use tax is also delayed from the county, so that number isn't necessarily indicative of July activity. But do we have kind of a broken out number for sales tax for auto?
We do. If you give me a brief moment, I will tell you what that was. And so I'm going to give you a couple of components. I guess I will buy myself some time, but just telling you how I do it. I have an auto sector, and my auto sector includes several things. So for the month of July, my auto sector was down 5%. But let me just be clear, that includes new and used car dealers, auto part dealers, car rental, and auto repair. So because you may be asking not about the broad thing, but more specifically, new and used auto dealers were also down the same 5%. So I guess whichever question you were asking, the broader or the more specific, and you were probably asking the more specific, down 5%. So we really did see a couple of months where the auto dealers did really well. April and May in particular. June was up 10%, but we've already kind of come back down. And I talked about how there was sort of a rush of people that went out to buy for implementation of the tariffs. And so there's been a lot of talk that pulled ahead demand. A lot of auto industry people talked about that pulling ahead demand, and that does so far seem to be showing up in the numbers, that there was a large growth in sales, and now we're actually seeing a slight decline, and the industry has projected a decline for the whole second half.
Okay, that's helpful. It actually is very interesting to hear the other piece related to the other portions of that sector. So thank you for sharing that.
Anytime, happy to do it.
I have just a maybe for my own edification purposes. I know we've talked about before that if somebody buys a car like in Denver, but they live in Aurora, they pay Aurora taxes. What happens if they buy it out of state? And I'm asking that because I've heard used car market in Colorado is elevated, and so there's people that are buying cars out of state and driving them back here. Do they pay Aurora tax in that case or no?
I believe they pay a use tax, but I don't know that definitively. So that's something I should probably look into to be more sure than I actually am.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious. Like I said, I've heard of a couple people who flew to California, and one I think went to New Mexico to buy a car because the price was so much cheaper than what they could get as a used car here. So All right, I appreciate all the answers and presentation. Councilmember Coombs, are you good?
Yes.
All right, thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up, and Andrew, if you want to present kind of all the JIT items together, feel free to do that. I don't think we need to do each one individually, but then, you know, we can do questions afterwards if there's any questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Andrew Jameson, Debt and Treasury Supervisor here in the Finance Department. So yes, my items are items 4A through 4F, which are the annual budget ordinances for the 6 GIDs in the city of Aurora. Basically, this is a procedural matter that coincides with the larger city general budget, where we approve the budget to collect property taxes to pay off debts associated with these GIDs, where, for example, Cherry Creek Racquet Club borrowed money to build a masonry fence around the neighborhood and issued debt for that. And this allows us to collect the property tax to pay that off. They're all fairly similar except for the Aurora Conference Center. And this just goes right along to the budget workshop and then to council. So we are asking for the committee's approval for these GID budgets today.
And just to clarify, so like in the example you gave of Cherry Creek Racquet Club, the residents within that neighborhood voted to authorize the GID, correct?
That is correct. It is a geographic area where there was an election and they voted to tax themselves to pay for these improvements. Yes.
Yep, got it. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Coombs, any questions, and are you okay moving these forward?
No questions for me, and I am okay moving it forward.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, Green Valley Ranch East Public Improvement Funding Agreement. Haley Bush Johansson.
Good afternoon. My name's Haley Johansson. Thank you for your time. I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation, so give me just 1 second here. Lots of clicking. And of course, it's the wrong screen. Sorry. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm here to present the second amended public improvement funding agreement. And Brian Rula is the assistant city attorney supporting this agreement as well. The project location for Green Valley Ranch East is northeast of 38th and Piccadilly. And it's in kind of the northern area of Aurora. There's a lot of development going up there, and it's west of E470. Public improvements are required for development projects, and that public improvements include construction of roadways and sidewalks, lighting, utilities, and any other infrastructure needed to support the development. Our current city code requires that public improvements be completed at the time of development prior to the certificate of occupancy. The Green Valley Ranch Public Improvement Funding Agreement ties the public improvements to the adjacency of the development that's under construction. Since Green Valley Ranch East and other similar residential projects are larger in nature, they tend to be phased. And so this agreement outlines the phasing associated with the project and then also reserves the funding for each segment that needs to be improved for public improvements. The existing structure of the agreement has establishes a collection of impact fees for each building permit. So that's each lot. And then the fees are based on the construction cost estimate for a particular segment. So in this case, if 48th Avenue as part of Green Valley Ranch East is in the agreement, there's a certain number of lots associated with that segment that need to be collected. That total cost for that segment is divided by the number of lots. And then each time a builder goes to develop a building lot, they provide the fee to the Metro District. That's Second Creek Ranch Metropolitan District, and it goes into an escrow account that the Metro District manages. The funds are accessible to the city if for some reason the improvements aren't completed in accordance with the terms of the agreement. And then the district also has the ability to complete the construction as well. One important note of the agreement, and there's no change to this with the updated agreement that we're presenting today, is that the city does not have any financial contribution for the improvements of this development. We're a party to the agreement just on a accountability standpoint and oversight. The updated agreement, so this would be the second amended and restated agreement. Green Valley Ranch East has been completing their improvements a bit faster than projected, which is great. So it removes some of the segments that have been completed. The second key change is that it includes an administrative mechanism for city staff to be able to remove segments from the agreement. And this is due to the completion of the construction or that the district, who's also a party to the agreement, has accepted the responsibility for that construction. And then one thing to know about the agreement is that if there's any other entity, say for example, ARDA, that goes to update or complete the construction of a particular segment, those types of the completion of those segments would be brought back through an amended agreement and would be reviewed by City Council. So there's only particular scenarios that would be covered under the administrative agreement or mechanism. And then in summary, this is just a phased approach to the infrastructure needed for when a development occurs, and it ensures the timely and necessary completion of those improvements, and it also allows an efficient release of the segments that have been completed through that administrative process. And the city maintains the oversight and accountability within that agreement as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And the main question for this policy committee is, can this item move forward to the next available study session?
All right, thank you for the presentation. Just to clarify, because you mentioned it, but I didn't really pick up on it. Is Green Valley Ranch East within ARDA boundaries?
Yes, they are the first. So there was the original agreement. There was a first amended and restated agreement, and that was to account for the fact that Green Valley Ranch is part of ARDA, and they have an IGA that supports that partnership. And then this proposed second amended and restated agreement is for the currently proposed changes that we have. So yes.
Got it. All right, I appreciate that explanation. Thank you. Councilmember Coombs, do you have any questions?
No questions from me, and I support moving it forward.
I do as well. Appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next up, internal audit update for court administration. Michelle Crawford.
Good afternoon, Michelle Crawford, City Auditor. So this is the requested update from the court's cash handling audit. Candace, you can go to the next slide. So implemented within the last 30 days was the recommendations around vending machine vendor management and vending proceeds depositing commissions. Court administration worked with the city attorney's office to enter into written service agreement with their vending machine vendor. And that agreement does include that commissions will no longer be received. And so that addressed both of those audit recommendations. And then the court administration can now provide system reports, exports from their system of different financial reports. So that was also implemented in the last 30 days. There is one outstanding recommendation that remains, and that is the recommendation for system controls. And just as a reminder, that recommendation was to hire an independent third party to assess whether adequate controls exist for adequate controls for financial and system controls existed and are built into the current system because it was internally developed and not an out-of-the-box system. And to provide recommendations on whether the system controls need updating or if it's better to migrate to an existing system. And so that recommendation is what still outstands. And then I'll let courts give any updates that they have.
Okay. And I got an email from Candace. I don't believe Candace is on, but she has two folks here in her place.
Hi, I'm Kyle Peterson with the IT department in courts. Yeah, we're looking at some options for getting external audits of the system controls. At the moment, I'm wondering if we should delay. Right now, I'm sure we would pass as is, but we are actively making changes to the system. And I think it might be beneficial to wait it out for a couple months as we are shifting to our new system and have that audited instead. And then that way we'd probably have to audit that as well. So it would be better than to just audit once and save some money. So I would like to do this later. Do you think that's reasonable? Yes.
Councilmember Gardner, can I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Kyle, so are you saying you're going to a new system? So is that a new receiving system or new point of sale system?
So we are going to be shifting our old receiving system out of the old terminal courts, our old Linux system, into websites. And so as we're doing that, we're going to be doing more integrations with the credit card machines. Right now, I was planning on integrating with Clover, but it's not clear if that's where the city is going to go. So depending on which vendor they end up choosing for credit card machines, I'll be able to integrate with that. And then we can have some better workflows. And because I want to have those better workflows and have this all be interconnected and have less chance of human error, I think that we should wait to do an audit of the system until all of that's in place. And that hopefully we should have more information from finance soon, maybe around budget. And then at that point, I would know when I can go forward with my changes. But as always, we can just do the audit now. And I think if we audit it as is, I would be fine with that.
Councilmember Coombs, do you have any feedback? I really, I guess, I need to think about it. I wouldn't really be prepared to give an answer right this second, but I don't know. Councilmember Coombs, do you have any thoughts?
So I just want to clarify, and I'm sorry if this is repetitive, with Michelle, what is intended by system controls in terms of what's being audited?
So the request was, because this was an internally developed system and it acted differently than we've seen other receiving systems out of the city, that we need verification and validation that segregation of duties, basic financial internal controls exist in the coding of the system, and then those additional typical IT controls that you would have within general systems. So two kind of buckets. The system controls are more like the general IT controls that a third party can assess for, but then additionally, we need validation that those financial controls on the back end, so segregation of duties, how approvals work, that those basic financial controls exist in the coding. And so that's what the recommendation is intended to make sure that those controls exist, or if they don't exist, does it make more sense to go to a third-party receiving system like some of the ones we already use across the city versus creating and continue to use our own developed system?
Excellent, thank you. Then I think just from a feedback standpoint, Kyle, I understand the intent there of wanting to make sure that the system being evaluated is one that is going to continue to be in use. I think the hesitation, and I think this is probably where Councilmember Gardner is coming from as well, is like also wanting to understand what's currently going on. And so I think that's where there's kind of a like, maybe it's a both and, even though that doesn't save money on the audit process. So I don't know if there are ways to better kind of provide information that could maybe be included in what the auditor looks at, where they can say, this is what's going on now, and this is how it compares to what was going on before. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah.
But so in that sense, I would lean toward a both, as much as I understand that that's onerous and is more costly. I think it's just better for us to understand both what's happening now and then what will be happening moving forward with the new system. But I'm okay with waiting on a decision and giving us a little more time to mull over it as well.
Yeah, that's very useful. Thank you for that feedback. And there's definitely a possibility that we work this out with whatever vendor we do the audit through to maybe get this a bit cheaper since they know that we're going to change. So I can work on getting that done. We were looking at Clover to be our receiving system, but now that we know that Clover might not be the one, we might end up using whatever other credit card system we end up with and using their receiving system. But right now, there's a lot of paths ahead of us, and it's not really clear how we have to wait till a lot of this shakes out to find out which path we're going to take. So I think that I'm just going to go forward with trying to get quotes and information on doing it as is, and then possibly a follow-up audit to see how it will be.
Yeah, and real quick, I'll just jump in. Thanks, Councilmember Coombs. You said it more eloquently than what I could get out at the time. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I'm coming from is, basically like here's where we are, and then here's where we're doing to improve it, right? Because I think that's what is the most powerful is, we understood that these issues existed, and now we have taken these steps to correct it. And so I think kind of doing both ends of it is helpful, because then it illustrates the work that was done to correct it. I think that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Thank you. I really appreciate the feedback.
Councilmember Coombs, any other questions or comments on either Michelle's presentation or what Kyle talked about?
Just thank you to Michelle for sharing the recommendations that have been implemented, and thank you, Kyle and the court administration team, for working on getting those recommendations implemented as well.
Yep, I will second that. Appreciate everybody's work on this. I know it isn't the most fun thing to talk about every month, but it's important and it's necessary. And so I appreciate everybody's work on addressing all this. I know it's a lot, it's a big lift, but I appreciate it. So thank you. All right, next up, Teresa, are you presenting on these two things that are under miscellaneous?
I just wanted to give you an overview at Terry's request of the pricing of the 2025 certificates of participation, which were issued in part to finance the animal shelter. This particular financing is a portion of the funding that was needed for that facility. As you may recall, there are other sources, including general government capital impact fees, funds available through other capital project funds. We had some ARPA funds and monies directed to the project through estate gifts. So a number of sources were combined in order to afford us the luxury of a new animal shelter. So as you may recall, this borrowing was authorized in July. And on second reading, we went to work in the issuance process, which means continuing to work on the investor disclosure. We did a credit rating presentation and solicitation of credit rating, and then we went on to price the securities. I think there was a memo that went around about the rating. We did get a rating from Moody's Ratings. They thankfully, and we appreciate that they, after a thorough credit analysis of the city, they confirmed our issuer rating of AAA, which is the best that they offer on any credit scale. And in addition, they affirmed the AA1 credit rating on the city's then outstanding certificates of participation. And on these certificates, they went one notch lower to a AA2. Their thinking was that the animal shelter was less essential asset than the other ones that we had, other facilities that we had financed with COPs. And so they thought there was a bit more appropriation risk for this one. And so it was ranked at AA2 instead of AA1, which would be a typical COP rating for us. So with that rating, we had the certificates. They were underwritten by Stifel, and the pricing occurred yesterday. They graciously hosted us in their offices so that we were able to attend. The issue was very well received by the market. We had over 114 million orders for 26.6 million of bonds. So almost all the maturities of the series were oversubscribed, some by 8.8 times. The only maturity that wasn't well received was the 2025 maturity, but other than that, they were all oversubscribed. And what that means is there was more demand than supply. So in accordance with supply and demand, we were able to go ahead and increase the prices on those securities, which means reducing the yield. So we got a price benefit from that. At the start of the order process, the COPs were priced to achieve a total interest cost of 4.815%. And because of the strong demand for the securities, we were able to price the bonds to achieve a total interest cost of 4.77. That equates to a 4.5 basis point savings on the issue versus what we thought we were going to have at the beginning of the day. And that equates to a savings of $246,000 over the full maturity range versus what was expected at the beginning of the day. The financing will be closed next Thursday, September 11th. And I just got to give a hats off to Stifel for its excellent execution of the sale. They did an outstanding job. So I am happy to answer any questions you have in that regard. It was a very successful sale and we couldn't be happier with the results.
Awesome. That's great news. Running the city well financially pays off. So good job, everybody. Councilmember Coombs, any questions or comments or anything on that?
Just thank you for getting that taken care of. And I'm glad to hear that things came in under the cost that we were expecting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then lastly, we are scheduled for October 2nd, next meeting, October 2nd at 1:30. Councilmember Coombs, does that work for you?
Yes.
All right, we will plan on that date. Appreciate everybody's time today and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.